This is KGW News at noon.
Well, the latest round of winter weather hit the Willamette Valley this morning. This video right here was shot by one of our crews near the Enchanted Forest Amusement Park, south of Salem in Turner. So this time around, most areas near Portland and Vancouver stayed just wet, while areas to the south, including Salem, Albany, and Corvallis, saw snow. Good afternoon, I'm Drew Carney. Thanks for joining us for the news at noon. We have crews out covering the weather around the area, and we're also getting a lot of help from our viewers. So Karen, we're going to start with you. Viewer Karen sent us this photo from up on Livingston Mountain in Camas this morning. She caught that six-pack of deer out in the snow. Next picture came to us from West Salem. It looks like they definitely got more than a dusting out there in West Salem. And one more to get things started from Falls City, which is a little less than halfway between Salem and Lincoln City on the way to the coast. That's Tina's dog Boone out there in the snow this morning. Closer to Portland right now on the left, we have a live look at the I-5-217 interchange where it's just wet right now. On the right, though, Highway 26 at Sylvan, and it looks like that spot on 26 is seeing a bit of a wintry mix this hour. Are you okay with me saying it that way, Rod? A wintry mix up there on Sylvan Hill along I-5?
Yeah,
pardon me, 26.
Almost looked like more snow than rain to me. And remember, Drew, so that is just under 1,000 feet up there at Highway 26, the overpass. A reminder that snow levels generally have been in this 500 to 1,000 feet, 500 to 1,000 feet range for the last several days, and that's still where we're at right now. So certainly if you live up in elevation, you could still see a heavier shower drop your temperature and pick up a little bit of snow. This started with an upper level low this morning that pushed inland. It's the reason you're seeing the rotation of moisture still pushing northward. Now you can tell on the radar, again, the green is rain, everything else, the white color is snow, but it's definitely a mix and mostly rain at this point in downtown Portland right there. And we expect to see this afternoon. Kind of a wintry mix, as Drew referred to, of shower activity, but ground temperatures or low elevation should now stay above freezing all the way into the early evening hours. I wanted to show you our Stoller live camera because at the height of the snow falling early this morning, this was pretty covered. So they've definitely seen some melting down there in Yamhill County. It's actually kind of a wintry mix, almost chunky rain, we like to say, over downtown Portland. But look at where the temperature is. It's at 38 degrees. And real quick, pick out your city. Tigard, good afternoon. 37 is your number. Salem, look at this. After being 32 and covered with snow, is now up to 42 degrees. So we are seeing some warming, Drew. The big story tonight will quickly turn to dry but really cold. We'll talk about that coming up.
All right, Rob, we will check back in with you here in just a few minutes, but we have more weather coverage to get to, including PBOT's grace period for parking tickets. It's now officially over. It ended as soon as we hit the air here at noon today. Of course, after last week's snowstorm, PBOT said it would waive all tickets for meters and other public parking spots where drivers parked legally, but then wound up keeping their cars in those spots for extended periods of time. Initially, PBOT issued this ticket waiver between last Thursday and this past Saturday, but then extended the grace period up until noon today, so just a few minutes ago. Bottom line, if you still haven't moved your car at this point, it could start to cost you. The city of Portland is also working to collect garbage that's piled up from last week. So the city is telling residents to put out their bins as usual and leave them out until they're empty. And they're also making garbage a priority right now over recycling. So if your recycling bin isn't emptied by your next collection day, they say you can set out another week's worth at no extra cost. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek addressed Oregon's housing and homeless crisis today. The governor spoke at a public hearing held by the State House Committee on Housing and Homelessness. That hearing focused on Bill 5019, which includes investments in shelters as well as money for rental assistance to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. During today's meeting, Governor Kotek urged lawmakers to make investments in housing in the upcoming budget.
We're here today because the human suffering caused by the housing crisis is one of the most daunting emergencies we have ever faced in our beautiful state. Business as usual is simply not enough. We must work together across all levels of government and across party lines to make the immediate and long-term changes that this humanitarian crisis requires.
Well, after passing a few amendments to the measure, lawmakers voted to send the bill on to the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, who will have to give their approval in order to fund it. In less than an hour, ODOT is holding another virtual meeting to discuss the state's new tolling program. Today's meeting will address whether or not the program falls under certain state laws that dictate land usage. If it does, ODOT could vote to ask the state to change those rules. At a meeting yesterday, ODOT officials presented different pricing models to other state and local agencies. They suggested using a system called value or congestion based on pricing.
It all kind of goes the same thing. You're applying a price to drive, which you can use that price then to manage congestion with. And that price can be variable depending on, time of day and that kind of thing.
ODOT says this will help ensure drivers only pay for what they use while easing traffic. Today's meeting discussing land use is set for 1 o'clock, and anyone can attend using a link on the Oregon tolling webpage. Well, yesterday during the news at noon, we heard about a man accused of murder escaping from a courthouse in Hillsborough. Again, we brought you that story this time yesterday. Since that time, police caught back up with him and managed to arrest him again last night. KGW's Mike Benner has more on this wild situation in Washington County.
This is craziness. The whole downtown is just chaos.
Chaos in downtown Hillsborough Monday. On the ground and from the air, law enforcement from all over look for a murder suspect who escaped from the Washington County Courthouse.
Oh my gosh, that's scary. That's really scary. I just want to go home. That's bad.
This is the man police and sheriff's deputies were looking for, Eddie Villalobos. In April 2021, authorities say, Villalobos stabbed to death a family member in Cornelius. Later that same day, we're told, Villalobos badly injured a second person in Wilsonville before police tracked him down and arrested him.
This gentleman was on trial, starting his trial. They're actually starting the jury selection process this morning. He was brought into court by 2 deputies.
Sergeant Danny DePietro says after a bathroom break and after his restraints had been removed, which is Oregon law, Villalobos made a run for it. He was able to get away from the 2 deputies assigned to him and third-party security stationed in the courthouse.
I wouldn't call it a failure. What I would call it is we need to reassess how we do things.
That's for another day. Today's priority was capturing Villalobos. Law enforcement set up a perimeter and, thanks to a tip from the public, tracked Villalobos to an apartment near Southeast 4th and Baseline.
Oh my God, that was so close right there. But I kept hearing the door open and closing and open and closing.
Suzanne Siller lives in the apartment complex where deputies found Villalobos hiding in an unoccupied home, eventually arresting him, bringing to an end a tense few hours in Hillsborough.
Oh, thank God they caught him. Oh my God. That's scary. It is scary.
I'm Mike Benner for KGW News.
Residents in 3 separate Oregon City neighborhoods found flyers with hate speech left in their driveways and yards this past weekend. As KGW's Blair Best reports, those flyers contained language that was both racist and homophobic.
This small residential street in Oregon City, tucked off Malala Avenue near a middle school, was one of the several neighborhoods targeted over the weekend.
It's not funny, and I really, whoever's doing this should be ashamed of themselves.
Sean was one of the homeowners who had a flyer covered in white supremacist messages thrown in his driveway.
I pick it up and I saw all the 3Ks and the white power.
And it happened on the so-called National Day of Hate, organized by domestic hate groups and other extremists.
I think it's ridiculous that we have that in our country these days.
It makes me sick. One, that we have a National Day of Hate. Why would we? There's enough going on in the world as it is right now anyway.
As we went door to door in this neighborhood, we talked with several longtime residents who didn't see the flyers themselves, but were shocked to hear that this was happening in a neighborhood that they described as quiet and inclusive.
Everyone seems to be kind of disheartened and frustrated to see any kind of hate speech being passed around.
Oregon City Police picked up more than 20 of the flyers over the weekend. Captain David Edwin says this isn't the first time they've responded to this type of hateful behavior.
About 2 months ago, we had an incident where somebody was
propagating some anti-Semitic hate as well.
They don't believe there to be any danger associated with the flyers and are handling it as a bias incident, which is different than a bias crime. They're forwarding the reports onto the State Department of Justice.
While it's not a crime at this point, you never know what it'll turn into.
Mayor Denise McGriff, Oregon City's first black mayor, called the incident appalling and pointed to the city's values of understanding, inclusivity, and tolerance, but says clearly there's still a lot of work to do.
Well, we definitely don't want to give any of these white supremacy groups a platform to, propagate their hate. But we also want to make sure that we're denouncing it when we see it.
Police are asking people if they see any of these flyers or any other hateful behavior to give them a call. In Oregon City, Blair Best, KGW News.